The first time his lips touched my skin, I knew I had crossed a line I could never take back. It was not a kiss on the mouth, not even on the cheek. It was a slow, burning kiss against the side of my neck that made my knees weaken, even as my wedding ring pressed against the glass I was holding. In that exact moment, I realized the truth. My marriage had just shattered, and it was entirely my fault. Before I tell you everything, I want to pause for just a moment. To all of you who have already subscribed to Betrayal Diaries, I want to say thank you from the deepest part of my heart. And to all the new and returning viewers who are watching but have not subscribed yet, I cannot wait for you to hit that button. Your support is the fuel and energy that keeps this channel alive, and it means everything. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts, your feelings, and even your judgments in the comments after this video, because your voices matter in this story too. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Rachel. I am 34 years old, born and raised in the suburbs of North Carolina. I have been married to my husband, Daniel, for 10 years. On the outside, we were the couple people envied. A beautiful two-story home with white shutters, 2 kids in elementary school, and a marriage that seemed solid to anyone looking in. But inside our house, behind the polished family photos and smiles, something had been breaking for years. Daniel is a good man. He is dependable, hardworking, and loyal in ways that should have been enough for any woman. He worked long hours as an accountant, often coming home drained, and his love language was responsibility, making sure bills were paid, making sure the roof did not leak, making sure we were stable. But somewhere along the line, I stopped feeling seen as a woman. I was a wife, a mother, a homemaker, but I was invisible. That was when he appeared. His name was Marcus. He worked at the local gym where I had been trying to reclaim a piece of myself after having kids. He was everything Daniel was not: loud, confident, full of energy that filled every corner of a room. His body was sculpted, his laugh was addictive, and his eyes carried a danger I should have run from. But I did not. At first, it was innocent. He was my trainer. He corrected my form, pushed me harder, clapped his hands when I broke a personal record. But little by little, the space between encouragement and intimacy blurred. A hand on my waist lasted a second too long. A compliment about my figure left me flushed. And in my heart, I began looking forward to those 1-hour sessions in ways that had nothing to do with fitness. One night, after a long session at the gym, Marcus asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I told myself it was harmless, just 2 friends unwinding, nothing more. But when we sat across from each other in a dimly lit bar, the air between us charged with something unspoken, I knew I was lying to myself. He leaned close, his hand brushing against mine as if it had been an accident, though we both knew it was not. I pulled back at first, whispering that I was married. He smirked, lowering his voice. "I know," he said, "but when was the last time someone made you feel alive?" His words were a blade, cutting into the deepest ache I had carried silently for years. I wanted to walk away, but instead, I stayed. I wanted to say no, but instead, I let the night unravel into something I could never undo. When I finally got home that night, Daniel was asleep on the couch with the television still glowing faintly across his face. He looked peaceful, exhausted as always, his wedding band glinting under the lamplight. I stood there in silence, my heart pounding, the smell of Marcus's cologne still clinging to my skin. Guilt rushed over me like a storm, but beneath it, an undeniable thrill lingered. That was the beginning of my destruction. Over the next few weeks, the boundaries between Marcus and me collapsed completely. I told myself lies to justify it. Daniel did not notice me, Daniel was too tired, Daniel only cared about paying bills. But deep down, I knew I was chasing something reckless, something selfish. Every stolen moment, every secret text, every brush of his hand pulled me further away from the life I had built. The worst part was how easy it was to pretend. I kissed Daniel goodnight, packed lunches for our kids, folded laundry, all while carrying a secret that was growing heavier by the day. I convinced myself I was in control. That no one would ever know. That I could keep both worlds balanced without consequence. But I was wrong. The night my marriage shattered came on a Friday, one of those quiet evenings when Daniel suggested we stay in and watch a movie. He ordered pizza, set up the living room, and sat close beside me, trying to bridge the distance that had grown between us. I wanted to enjoy it, to let him back in, but my phone buzzed on the table, and Marcus's name flashed across the screen. Daniel glanced at it before I could snatch it up. In that single second, my world collapsed. I will stop here for this chapter. The temptation had already consumed me, but now the storm was about to break. What came after that night was something I could never have imagined. The moment Daniel's eyes landed on the glowing screen, the air inside our living room thickened until it felt like I could not breathe. His gaze stayed fixed on the phone longer than I could handle, his jaw tightening as he read Marcus's name. He did not say a word, but he did not need to. The silence was louder than any accusation. I grabbed the phone quickly, stammering something about a gym update, but my voice trembled, and I knew I sounded guilty. Daniel did not push. He simply leaned back into the couch, his face unreadable, and pressed play on the movie as if nothing had happened. But the atmosphere had shifted, and I could feel the first crack of suspicion forming between us. For the next week, Daniel grew quieter. He was still present, still helping with homework, still kissing the kids goodnight, but with me he had become distant, watchful. He studied me when I thought he was not looking. He asked small questions with an edge of weight in them, like, "What time did you get home?" or, "Who were you talking to just now?" Each time, my answers felt rehearsed, fragile. The guilt was gnawing at me, but so was the addiction. I could not let go of Marcus. The thrill of stolen moments, the rush of feeling desired, the intoxication of his attention, it pulled me deeper, even as the walls of my marriage began closing in. Marcus fueled my recklessness. He sent messages in the middle of the night, daring texts that kept me awake beside a sleeping husband. He called me when I was on lunch breaks, his voice lowering to a tone that made my stomach twist with desire. He did not care about my marriage. If anything, I think the danger of it excited him. But Daniel cared. And Daniel knew. The breaking point came on a Wednesday evening. Daniel came home early, earlier than I expected. My phone was on the kitchen counter, buzzing with a text. I was upstairs folding laundry when I heard his voice call my name, not the usual warm, casual tone, but flat, heavy. When I came down, he was standing in the kitchen holding my phone. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot as if he had been staring at the screen too long. The text was still open. Marcus had sent me something reckless, a message that left no room for innocent explanation. "Who is Marcus?" Daniel finally asked, his voice low, controlled, but shaking at the edges. I froze. My mouth opened, but no words came out. My body betrayed me, hands trembling, heartbeat racing. I wanted to say it was nothing, to spin a lie, but the weight of his stare pinned me down. "He is just a friend," I whispered, and even as I said it, the lie collapsed under the truth that burned in his eyes. Daniel slammed the phone onto the counter, the sound splitting the silence like a gunshot. He ran a hand over his face, his body trembling, trying to hold back the rage that wanted to erupt. I had never seen him like that before. The hours that followed were the longest of my life. We sat across from each other at the dining table, our kids asleep upstairs, the world outside moving on while ours was disintegrating. He asked questions. Not all at once, not in a fury, but slowly, methodically, like a man forcing himself to look at something that was destroying him. "How long? Where did you meet him? Did you ever bring him into this house?" Every answer was a knife. My lies at first were desperate, but he saw through them. Eventually, the truth spilled out in fragments. Yes, it was him from the gym. Yes, it had been going on for weeks. No, I never brought him here. Daniel's hands shook on the table. His face was twisted in a way I cannot forget, hurt, disbelief, fury, and devastation all colliding at once. At one point he stood, pacing the room, then slammed his fist into the wall hard enough to crack the drywall. I jumped, tears spilling, begging him to sit back down. But he did not want my tears. He wanted honesty, and the more honest I became, the more I could see him breaking. That night, he did not sleep beside me. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling in silence, while I lay in our bed unable to close my eyes. The weight of what I had done pressed against my chest until it hurt to breathe. The next morning, he barely spoke. He dressed, got the kids ready, and left for work without looking at me. The silence was worse than any shouting. It was the silence of a man who had lost something he could never get back. Days turned into a blur of tension. He came home late, avoided me at meals, and answered my attempts at conversation with short, clipped responses. My children noticed. They asked why Daddy was sad, why Mommy was crying. I had no answer that would not destroy them too. Marcus, on the other hand, did not understand the gravity. He wanted to keep seeing me, keep pushing for more. But the thrill was gone. Every time I looked at him now, all I saw was the wreckage of the man I had married. The weight of my choices had shifted from excitement to dread. And then came the twist I did not expect. One evening, Daniel walked into the bedroom, holding a small folder. He tossed it on the bed. Inside were printed messages, screenshots, even photos. He had been gathering proof. I stared at them, horrified, realizing that he knew far more than I thought. I wanted to believe you would stop lying, he said, his voice hoarse. But you are not the woman I thought I married. There was nothing left to say. The exposure was complete. My mask had been ripped away, and the man who had once promised me forever now looked at me as if I were a stranger. That night marked the beginning of the end. The confrontation had happened, the truth was out, and the home we had built was no longer safe. The fallout was coming, and I knew it would destroy everything in its path. The morning after Daniel dropped that folder of evidence on our bed, the air in our home felt like a battlefield after the smoke had cleared. Quiet, heavy, lifeless. I had imagined confrontations before, but never like this. Never this final. Daniel avoided me completely. He moved through the house like a ghost, packing a small duffel bag without saying a word. I watched from the doorway, wanting to stop him, wanting to fall at his feet and beg him not to leave. But I knew. Deep inside, I knew nothing I could say would erase what he had seen. Are you leaving? I whispered. He froze for a moment, his back still to me. Then he zipped the bag shut and turned around. His eyes were red, his face hardened. I do not even know who you are anymore, Rachel, he said, his voice breaking. The woman I loved is gone. And with that, he walked past me, down the stairs, and out the door. The sound of the front door slamming shut echoed in my chest like thunder. That was the moment I knew my marriage was over. The days that followed were unbearable. My children asked why Daddy was staying with Grandma. I gave them half answers, trying to protect them from a truth they were far too young to understand. I told them we were having a hard time and needed space. But their confused little faces cut deeper than any argument with Daniel ever could. At night, the bed felt like a coffin. Empty, cold, echoing with memories of love that had once lived there. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment that had led me here, every choice, every lie, every secret. I had wanted passion, excitement, freedom. What I had gotten was loneliness, regret, and the destruction of the only man who ever truly loved me. Marcus was still there, at least physically. He texted, called, even drove by the house once when he realized Daniel had left. But every time I saw his name on my phone, I felt sick. He was not my escape anymore. He was a reminder of the ruin I had created. One afternoon, he showed up at the gym while I was still clinging to the hope of normalcy. He grinned, leaned close, and asked when we could spend the night together again. I looked at him, really looked at him, and all I saw was emptiness. He was not love. He was lust, adrenaline, danger dressed as excitement. He had no idea what my heart had lost, because he had never cared about my heart at all. That day, I blocked his number. But it was too late. Cutting him off did not bring Daniel back. Weeks turned into months, and the separation became permanent. Daniel filed for divorce quietly, without screaming or dramatic accusations. The papers came in the mail like a cold knife to the chest. Seeing my name on those documents was like staring at a gravestone of the life we had once built. We met in a lawyer's office once, to discuss custody arrangements. Daniel sat across from me, his face calm, but his eyes empty. I searched for some trace of the man who used to hold me when I cried, who used to kiss me in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. But he was gone. When the papers were signed, Daniel stood up, shook the lawyer's hand, and walked out. He did not even look back at me. The fallout of my choices did not end with the divorce. It followed me everywhere. Friends who used to invite me to dinner stopped calling. Family who had admired our marriage now looked at me with disappointment. I had gone from being a wife and mother with a picture-perfect life to being a cautionary tale whispered about behind closed doors. But the harshest punishment came from within. Guilt became my shadow, following me everywhere I went. Regret was the taste in my mouth when I woke up in the morning, and loneliness was the blanket I wrapped around myself at night. I often think back to that night, the moment Marcus's lips touched my skin. I thought it was passion. I thought it was freedom. In reality, it was the beginning of my destruction. I lost Daniel. I lost the trust of my children. I lost the life I had spent